Now we know the theory of printing, we've assembled our cassette, we've gone over the calibration process. It's time to start printing, but what do we want to print? Well, they offer you two default jobs. There's a 4-line message in there and there's a 3-line date message in there you can use. If those work for you, great. You can't really change font size or anything like that. So you're just gonna select those, type, use the keypad inside there to type whatever it is you want to print, and then you're off to the races. You can run production, you're good to go. If that doesn't work for you, well, now it's time to talk about the software, specifically the message creation software called Clarisoft. Now, I like to tell people if you can use Microsoft Office, you can use this software. It's not very difficult to learn. It's a simple, what you see is what you get software tool. Now, the software itself is free. I can send it to anyone watching right now, and you'll be able to make things on your computer, great. However, getting them from your computer to the printer is not free, and that's where the USB dongle comes in. Let's pull up Clarisoft on our PC, and I want you to pay attention to the top left corner. We've got this thing said demonstration mode. Demonstration mode means we can make things in the software, but we can't get it anywhere else but this computer. So to get it on the printer, we need this little dongle. Plug that into a port and watch demonstration mode disappear. Now we're ready to run, make whatever we need to do, and save it to our printer. To create a date, we're going to go to the left-hand side and select date. Then drag our cursor over to the label and left click. This will drop the date on the label and open a pop-up window. In this pop-up window, we can select the date format drop-down. We can see all the pre-programmed date types, including Julian dates. After selecting the advanced button, another pop-up window will appear. In this pop-up window, we can remove and add different variables to make the date code exactly how we want it to look. To build an offset, double-click on the date. The pop-up window will appear. Go to the date type drop-down. Here you'll have two choices, user entered date or calculated date. Selecting user entered date will allow us to prompt the operator with a message. We're going to use best by date. This will allow the operator to pick the best by date on a calendar at the touchscreen. To use the calculated date, select it and then go to the Calc Manager button. Another pop-up will appear and we'll select the New button. A final pop-up will appear and it will ask us to give a name to this calculation. We are going to use a 180-day offset. Go down to the default offset and enter the days. Notice on the right you can switch between units, days, months, and years. We'll type 180 days. Then select OK and OK again. And make sure the 180-day offset is in the calculation to use window. You'll notice the preview of the date has updated to a 180-day offset. To create fixed text, select the text button on the left-hand side. Drag the cursor to the label and left click. A pop-up window will appear. In the default text box, type whatever is fixed in your message. For instance, could be a location, the words Best Buy, or a production code. To get started, we are going to go down to primary barcode and select that. Then drag our cursor to the label and left click. Then you'll get a symbology list or different primary barcodes you could use. In this example, we're going to use the data matrix. A pop-up window will appear, and this is going to be your properties window. So in the barcode data, we are going to go ahead and enter something. We're going to use our website, www.ttoparts.com. Say, okay, he's just saying, hey, this doesn't look right. I need to make it bigger. Perfect. So we'll just drag it and resize it. Then we're going to go to secondary barcode. And here we're going to drop an ITF barcode. Now this is just to show you different types of barcodes. So again, another pop-up window will appear. This is just the properties of this one. So we can manipulate this. We'll shrink it down real fast, kind of get him in position. And once he's in position, we can go inside and start changing stuff. We can remove the bearer bars, change the magnification, increase the human readable text, a whole bunch of different things here to make it useful and to give you the exact code you want. Now watch I'm play around and resize this. Obviously the human readable here is not correct. This thick-thin ratio is going to be the bars, so that's your scannability. So you can play with that if you're having trouble scanning stuff. And that is how you create barcodes. Saving to USB. Now this is the most important step, and if done properly, all your images, graphics, text files will come over perfectly. If not, you're gonna get errors when you go to load this job. First thing I'm showing you here, this is the USB that I'm using. You can see we have archives and a few other things. Nothing that says jobs. First step, we're gonna do a file save as. We'll give it a name, TTO Parts Message Logo. After we name it, we are gonna go to the print button. It looks like a printer. This will give us a pop-up. It has a few options down towards the center, download, download and select, or print to file. We wanna have the print to file selected, and it should be showing the removable drive, the USB drive. That was the one I showed you earlier. Then we are gonna select current image. It'll give us a quick preview of what that image is, and then it will save it. Now we open up our USB drive, and now you can see we have a graphics folder, a jobs folder, and a fonts folder. We open up the jobs folder, we see our message in there. Now we need to open up the graphics folder. Okay, this doesn't look like our image, but let's double click it. It is. It's renamed it a different name, but it dragged that file with it. So now when we go to load this onto a printer, it will have the graphic with the message perfectly. So we have the files that we just created on the thumb drive. We're gonna go ahead and insert them. Once he's inserted, we are gonna go to the settings button, and then we're gonna go to database and external. In here, we're gonna look for our files. Now I know I named them tests, so instead of looking through all these files that I have, I'm just gonna search for test. And I got test print, that's the first one. Yeah, we're gonna restore this. And then test print 2, we're also gonna restore this. So the restore button looks like a thumb drive with an arrow pointing to a cabinet folder cabinet. And we hit that. He asked if you want to restore it, say yes. For most of you, like 99% of you, this message creation that we just went over and all the details that we talked about is going to be more than enough. You're going to turn your printer on every day. If you have, user entered text, you can enter it every day. The variable offsets you build in are going to just roll over with the day, and you'll be running. However, there is a small portion of people who like to do things a little bit differently. I like to break the use case here into 3 different categories. Number 1, the simple setup and the USB. 2, what I call the master PC setup. And then finally, number 3, the master PC setup with an external database. The use cases diminish as we go from 1 to 3, 1 being the most common, 3 being the most rare. Simple setup is where we create messages on our PC. We save those messages to a USB. I take the USB to the printer, insert it, download those messages from the thumb drive to the printer. And once they're on there, we can use the HMI to easily select which messages we want. The master PC setup is more like a command center, right? So this is for you freaks that like to control everything from one PC to push out to your printers. The mile high view is you'll have one PC connected to all your printers via Ethernet. You will need another software to do this called Clarinet, and that's to network all the printers. You can use Clarisoft, but you only get a 1-to-1. So you can only have one connection open at a time. So if you're running more than one printer, this really doesn't make a whole lot of sense for you, because what you'll have to do is get into the settings, change which IP address you're gonna try to ping every single time that you wanna change a job. If you have Clarinet, you can connect to all of them at once. You can push all the jobs to every one of them, or you can selectively push to different groups. So say printer 1 and 3 wants a set of jobs, and the rest get another set of jobs. And the final step, the master PC with the external database, it's gonna take that Clarinet software where we're connected to all of our printers at once and take it one step further. What's gonna be different here is that our message creation, what we use is actually just gonna be a template. And all the things inside there, the text will all be variables. And what we can do there is point that message towards a database with those variables and have it autofill every time. We're not gonna go in depth into Clarinet in this tutorial. Please check out our other tutorial videos or other course on Clarinet itself. The final thing I want to discuss before we start talking about errors and flowcharts and what to do when this happens is the simple IOs. So an IO is an input or an output. The printer has a select number of inputs, a select number of outputs. What might you use the inputs for? Well, the most common input is obviously the print trigger. This is what tells the printer when to print. These are wires 1, 2, and 3. Now this print trigger can be tied to a PLC, so you can have a relay set up with your PLC or whatever. to let the printer know it's time to print, or you can use an external sensor. It's very common to see a contrast sensor to pick up a black identification mark on your packaging or on your film. That'll let it know it's time to start printing. You can also get a little creative with these things. You could use a proximity sensor to pick up some movement if you wanted to. So say you have a sealing process that an arm moves and you know it's gonna move every single time. For every iteration of a package or for every single package that goes by, boom, we do a process that moves this arm. You can put a sensor right there to pick up that movement. The most common use case for an output would be to let your packaging machine or your PLC of the packaging machine know there's something wrong with the printer, stop. So you can imagine if you're not using this, you can have some problems, right? You can run out of ribbon, nobody's paying attention. The printer throws up an error, but your pack line doesn't know there's an error and it's just gonna keep running. So you're gonna run all your product without any best by date. Not good. So what we wanna do is use those to terminate any function of the pack line. So anytime there's an error, it just stops, throws an alarm, and your whole machine shuts down.
The inputs and outputs are configurable. However, you need to use Clarity Config to get in there and start making those changes. The changes you can make inside Clarity Config to the IO is like what logical event happens at what input or output, like when an input is on, when it's off, what output circumstance causes this output to be high or low or on or off. When you get into Clarity Config and look at the input page, there's 3 physical inputs on the bottom of this page. You can click one and configure it. Now the first one, like we mentioned before, is your print trigger, print sensor. You don't need to do anything to this. This comes default, so you don't have to worry about configuring this one. But if you wanted to configure other inputs, this is where you would do that. The output page is the same way. We need to get in Clarity Config, look for the outputs, and then we can configure them. Now remember, I did mention this earlier. There's 2 different types of outputs. We can send a direct 24-volt signal with 2 of them, and we have a dry contact relay with the other 2, so you'll need to supply 24 volts if you're using those. If we hit the drop down while we're inside the outputs, we can see what happens when it's activated or deactivated. One that we talk about and use the most is going to be the printer's offline, printer online output. So the printer enters the offline mode when there's a fault or when you hit the production button to make it stop running, or when you power up for the very first time and you don't enter into production mode. That would be considered the offline mode. So when this thing is active, your output could be sent to the pack line, and then the pack line would know, oh, okay, there's a fault, or it's not in run mode, or there's some other problem, the cassette's open, whatever. I don't have a printer here. Now I need to stop my production process because we got to wait for this printer to come back online.